Sanjay ji, namaste, and thank you very much for speaking with us here at CNN News 18. My first question to you, sir, are you and your officials, your entire team, are they safe? Are things better than before?
Things are better than before, what it used to be a couple of months back. And that is how we demonstrated that feeling by restoring some more visa services. We are also organizing consular camps. There are protests, but nevertheless, we are secure.
Sir, today is a festive day, Dev Deepavali, Kartik Purnima, and also Gurpurab. We are getting reports that there are certain protests that are still being organized outside, say, the Hindu temple in Sari, the Lakshmi Narayan temple. Are you aware of what has happened there?
Yeah, it was not related to any religious festivity. We were doing a consular camp at the mandir, and some of the anti-India elements, largely the Khalistani elements, they did protest, shouted slogans against India, shouted slogans against Indian diplomats in Canada. But luckily and thankfully, the local law and order authorities took cognizance of that, and they kept those hooligans on the other side of the street. And of course, there were pro-Indian Indo-Canadians as well, who took pro-India sloganeering against those hooligans who were shouting anti-India slogans.
But, sir, this continues. So has this been raised with the Canadian counterparts, or is this something that one will have to live with under this entire freedom of expression, ambit?
This is repeatedly raised with the Canadian authorities and my interlocutors, as well as in New Delhi with the Canadian High Commission. We find that there is a better understanding of our concerns, but our core concerns are yet to be fully addressed, and we will keep sensitizing our interlocutors to address our core concern, which is not to allow Canadian citizens to use Canadian soil against Indian sovereignty and territorial integrity.
So one of the flashpoints, or perhaps the issue that was raised by the Canadian Prime Minister, the issue of Hardik Singh, has there been any progress since the last time we spoke on that matter?
I believe that the investigation is on. Generally, during the investigation, the contents will not be shared. So I'm not aware at what stage the investigation is there. But I'm sure once they conclude the investigation, they will come on board and let us know the conclusion. And if they need any help from us on the basis of some specific or relevant information which could be shared with us, we'll always look into that.
Yeah, has this matter reached the courts, the Canadian courts? Because the excuse given by the Canadian polity, that is the ruling government, is that the courts will decide. But some reports suggest that not even a charge sheet has been filed. So could you throw some light on that?
No, not that we know of. As per our information, the investigation continues. And in the Canadian legal system, unless the investigation has concluded, it will not go to prosecutor and therefore the court of law.
So one of the other concerns is an American citizen who's been designated a terrorist by Bharat, who's trying to do certain activities on Canadian soil. Have you taken cognizance of his activities? Because he has named officials and shown your photographs, and also trying to threaten people from flying our airline, that is Air India.
His hateful speech, his incitement to violence, all such incidents have been shared with the Canadian interlocutors, and they have assured us that they are looking into it.
Are you convinced by the assurances, sir, or could more be done? I know I'm pushing your remit, but may I request you to kindly weigh in on it?
From our perspective, we would like certainly more to be done. But I'm very glad that they have taken our concerns on board and they are looking into it.
Sir, Ambassador Sandhu was also dragged into it, your counterpart in the US, the ambassador there. And although he said that he had attended a Guru Parab celebration in Long Island. The propaganda by the same person, Panun, was somewhere to the contrary.
The person you just named, he is a propagandist. He doesn't have much support, but nevertheless, given that we live in a world of social media and gratifications, so the gentleman has been able to, sorry, I called him gentleman, but that hooligan has been able to somehow drive some news media houses in the world to listen to him. So I don't believe in his propaganda. He has threatened me, as many of us know, many times. And I'm thankful to the Canadian government that they have taken cognizance of such threats and have provided ample security to me and my consul generals, though the safety concern still remains, which is our core concern. So we'll take his allegations, we'll take his points of view with a lot of, not only pinch of salt, a cup of salt.
Well, but isn't it sometimes ironical, or does it because on the one hand, the Canadian authorities and the Canadian government is tending to point fingers at Bharat on the killing of a terrorist or somebody who had an RCN against him, that is Hardik Nijar. On the other hand, an entity or a person who's been deemed a terrorist, designated terrorist by Bharat, continues to enjoy Canadian hospitality. Someone who's threatened you, and the authorities did not apprehend him or take action against him when he was in Canada.
It's really very unfortunate that such threats have so far not received any penalties. But as I told you earlier, that investigation is on. The laws will have to be followed, I'm sure, by any country. And once it is concluded, we may be able to see better times in our bilateral relations.
Is it difficult to identify these elements? Are these Indian citizens in Canada, or are these Indians who have now migrated to Canada? So is it difficult to identify such elements? Like the ones who were standing outside, the 25 out who were standing outside the temple just the other day.
It is not so difficult as long as other Indo-Canadians come forward. We will need to know about them through our community, our diaspora here. Many of them do come forward. Initially, all of them had come here to live in peace, to work out their professions, to go about practicing their faith. But recently, all these threats which have come to their profession, threats which has started inhibiting their practice of faith, all these have created kind of a divide in the Indian diaspora. And those who are suffering, now they have decided that they will voice their concerns against it. And that is what, when you mentioned about the Surrey temple incident, that's what happened. They said enough is enough. Now, yes, we are for all peace. We are for a united Indo-Canadian community. But those who want to disrupt India-Canada bilateral relationship, they will have to face consequences.
So one of the suggestions that's come forth is that such elements should be identified, and their visas or OCIs, there should be a restriction. They should not be allowed to come to Indian soil. Your thoughts on it, sir?
See, any foreigner who violates the regulatory framework of obtaining a visa, Indian visa, or obtaining an OCI card at any point of time in his or her life will be dealt with the law. So if there is someone who is inimical to Indian territorial integrity and sovereignty and has been granted a permission to travel to India through OCI card or a visa, the visa or OCI card can always be cancelled.
Because one of the excuses given is, what do? Your authorities give them visa.
That is true. And each case is seen as on a case-to-case basis. And if that at that point of time, if there are no criminality involved, of course, the person will get a visa. We always welcome foreigners to come to India, Atithi Devo Bhava and Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. But nevertheless, those who have aspersions against India, of course, will have to deal with that according to the Indian legal system. And the Indian legal system is very clear that people who are unable to abide by the India visa regulations or rules should not be able to visit India.
The operation of gangsters who have operations both in Bharat and on Canadian soil, once again it's come to light with singer Gippy Grewal claiming that he was threatened, his house was fired upon, and one associate of Lawrence Bishnoi, Rohit Kodara, has actually openly spoken to News 18 and taken responsibility for the same. Is this a concern, sir? Is this a serious concern? This Goldie Barar, Lawrence Bishnoi gang using Canadian soil also?
See, I'll not talk about the gang war and gangsters because I'm not privy to what they do. But one thing is for sure that if someone commits a heinous crime, either the law or the criminals will follow them.
Because if I may ask you, is there information sharing with the Canadian authorities about these gangsters, their whereabouts? And is there any help in trying to locate these elements? Because they are wanted in Bharat.
To your question, yes, there are mechanisms and platforms which exist through which we share information regarding such issues that you mentioned. And they are largely between the governments and whatever could be done on the basis of the information shared, I'm sure is being done.
Are you looking at a possibility that, given the heat on them because they tried to threaten Indian officials on Canadian soil, are they now trying to target perhaps the diaspora, the Canadian Hindu population or Indians in Canada? Do you have a concern that this could perhaps escalate?
The pro-Khalistani elements in Canada, either hardcore or those who have been leveraged to or threatened to follow their dictum, have been threatening the Indian diaspora in Canada for some time now. They have been vandalizing temples. They have been shouting slurs against part of the Indian community. But let me assure you that 99% or more than 99% of the Indian diaspora here are united, are pro-India Canada, are pro-India.
My final question, sir, is there perhaps some more positive response from the Canadian authorities and do we see things going back to normal somewhere? Or are matters still stuck because of the concerns raised around Hardeep Nijjar's matter?
No, we have positive movements. We have more conversation and not less. And as India has always talked about, that dialogue and diplomacy are the only ways to get out of any international doldrums. And in this difficult situation, diplomacy and dialogue both are playing their roles. And given that the two countries have always been friends and will remain friends for time immemorial, the only way that I can foresee will be a positive movement, a move towards north after this sordid saga which we are facing.
Finally, sorry, I'm squeezing this in, but would you like to see some more action against these key elements, especially those who are threatening officials and impede the functioning of the consulate there?
Of course, they are not only threatening us, they are threatening those Canadian citizens who practice different faith. They are threatening those Indo-Canadians who just belong to a certain religion. So certainly, these should constitute crime, and the action should be taken against those who are trying to disturb, those who are trying to create an imbalance in the Indo-Canadian relations.
So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for speaking with us. And we wish you not just greetings on the festive season to you and the entire team there, but also pray for your safety and well-being. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and greetings to your viewers on Guru Parv and Kartik Purnima. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Namaste.